Hello, everyone. My name is Marianne Ferretta, and I am a product manager for ArcGIS Online. And thank you so much for joining us today. We are very excited to show you what we've been working on. The new map viewer has many of the enhancements you've been requesting and much more. I have with me today some of the engineers behind the scenes who live and breathe the map viewer. So let's say hello to the team and take a look at this new functionality.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Bartley. Excited to present the new map viewer to you. We've been working on it for a long time and excited that it's coming out of beta. Flora?
Hi, I'm Flora Vale. I have been working on getting charts into map viewer, which is also very exciting. It's been in the works for a long time and I'm happy to show it to you today.
Hi, I'm Chris Whitmore. I'm a product engineer on the ArcGIS Online team, and specifically for Map Viewer, among a few other areas. Likewise, really excited to kind of show you some of the neat features coming out with the new Map Viewer. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Zara Matheson. I'm also a product engineer with the online team and also part of the Map Viewer team, and excited to show you what we have in store as well.
All right. Thanks, Mary. Cool. Yeah, we're going to do a demo heavy view of the new map viewer. At the end of the session, we'll talk a little bit about roadmap and kind of what's coming. But Flora, Zara, and Chris are going to get you comfortable with the new capabilities of the map viewer by just showing you a bunch of demos. So I think we'll start off with Chris and take it away.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. So, like Jeremy said, we have a lot of demos lined up, and I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to do a separate share. All right. Okay, so you should see my browser in a map on deployment. But first, a couple of things that I wanted to mention before we dive into these demos is that, as many of you have heard or are aware, the new map viewer is coming out of beta as part of the ArcGIS Online release next week. I'll have more details for that later on in the session and kind of a demo of how that's going to look side by side. But one of the things that's worth starting off with now, and maybe this is a refresher for a lot of folks, is some of the UX concepts that we have tried to bring forward in the new map viewer. And a lot of those are around, fast, quick response, focused configuration experience, while still having the convenience to navigate around the other layers in your map or the overall map building experience. And a few things to that effect. So first, you can see the toolbars on the left-hand side. These are the map-centric tool settings, whether that's for adding data, whether that's accessing specific layers, whether that's the bookmark or operations like save or opening a new map. And like I said a moment ago about a focused configuration spaces, one of the things with the new map viewer is we wanted to break out some of the different layers that you may have, with the different content you may have in your map. So for instance, back up, you see your operational layers. You see the layers that render on top of your base map as a separate TOC, as a separate panel in map viewer. Same thing with any standalone table layers you have. Same thing for base map. Zara will get more into this later, but there is a focused experience for creating, selecting, and building your base map. And likewise for charts that we'll go over here in just a few minutes, and same thing for bookmarks. And one of the nice convenient features in the new map viewer is that you can open a map without having to leave the viewer. So that's really cool that you don't have to drill out and open a map separately like we had to in Classic. So yes, right away, that's a really big convenient feature. All right, so we talked about the layers on the left, and one thing I want to show you while we're here in the layer list, where you can order a few things, you can rename, you can remove, you can add. You can also create a group layer. And let me do that real quick. And I'm going to rename this. All right, and so if you caught this, notice that over on the right, panel opened up immediately when I started interacting with the layers here. On the right side is a toolbar for configuring your layer. So this is the focus space for each layer where you can make styling changes. You can configure pop-ups, you can configure charts. You can do all these things, including the layer properties we have here. Well, one of the things that's coming out is this isn't available on arcgis.com yet, but it will be next week as part of the release, is a way to navigate between the layers in your map without having to interact with the left-hand side. So you can totally dismiss this and see kind of the layers in your map still organized the way we showed them on the left. You have your layers, you have your tables, you have your base maps. And then if you have a group layer, you can also see kind of that natural hierarchy is available here. So some really cool things to kind of make it to where you can get to the small and to the large very quickly. And one thing I want to drill into with this. All right, so I selected the counties layer, which is the layer we have visualized here on the map right now. And I want to drill into a few more of the features that we have that are kind of geared towards convenience, responsiveness, and just helping you get your work done without having impediments along the way. And whenever you select a field or an attribute, whether that's for the smart mapping, styling, or other spots, you have a list of fields. You have a search experience to refine things or to filter. And then one of the really cool things as well is that you get summary information about the particular attribute, whether that's field type. If the layer has configured this, it shows a field alias, and it's really helpful to have a field description as well. And then finally, you have some statistics about that attribute. So, I find myself referencing this all the time because it's really great to come back and, hey, what's in this attribute? It's really quick. It's super. It's a really good way to get a sense of what you're looking at. Yeah, I think we're good here. With this, I'll cancel out of this. And a couple other things I want to show is around the histograms and some of the color ramps. The responsiveness on the map as you drag handles around is immediate. So right away, you can explore and then find what you like, the balance you like, and go from there. And you can drag the entire handles for the upper and lower limits of the render, or you can adjust each one individually. And color ramps, that's another one that the team has been working on over the past year and a half now. And MapViewer has a ton of color ramps. And you can see they're organized around a lot of use cases, light backgrounds, dark backgrounds, around various colors, subdued, bright, and colorblind friendly. And when you click a ramp, similar to the sliders on the histogram, the response is immediate. So there is no waiting, there is no clicking this, clicking that. Right away, you're just engaging with the visualizations of the data on your map. And one thing to show with this is that with the unemployment data, it lends itself well to being above and below. It's above, in this case, the national rate or the national average. You show visualize on one side or the other. One of the recent updates of MapViewer has a better way or maybe a different way to visualize this. And let's jump right into that. Okay, so this is a map of global temperature anomalies in February 2021. This is Living Atlas data, and this is largely the renderer configuring the Living Atlas, which is great. It's very clear. You can see the cold spots, you can see the warm spots, you can see the gradient for those along the way. But I think there's a different way we can approach this. So let's drill into that. And this lends itself to a really good above and below example. All right, so back in the style panel, and I'm going to remove this existing attribute. This is actually an arcade expression that's driving the render here. And I'm going to come back. We see the default rendering for the layer. I'm going to select temperature anomaly, which is now the attribute rather than expression. And right away, MapViewer has some defaults that maybe aren't ideal in this case, but they're kind of worth exploring in the sense that right away, this works for a lot of data sets, but above and below is maybe a little bit of a different case. And same thing with counts and mounts color. This, without some additional tweaking here, it really won't be what we're looking for. However, and then with color and size, we have a specific theme available above and below, which takes symbol pairs to symbolize the above values and the below values. And we saw as soon as I applied that, it cleaned up everything right away. And we're back to seeing the trends that were evident when we first opened the map. So we're getting close. And there are a few kind of things we can do that, the map viewer kind of take the default, which is really great, but then you can kind of fine tune things from there. I actually don't want to use chevrons. I want to use a different symbol pair. Map viewer has quite a few available. In this case, I want to use triangle. I think that'll work well in this case. The next thing you see is that the color is probably backwards. We want cold to be blue and red to be hot. So we do that here real quick. So we'll go for a darker one. And same thing here, but I actually want to adjust this a little bit more. Super quick and easy. And then similar with the handles here, with the histogram, is adjust, map response. You kind of see exactly where you want things to be. And maybe there's some weighting you want to configure in your map. In this case, I think we're good. So we're getting closer, but there's still some noise along the way that detracts from the overall trends. And I think we can clean this up through data-driven transparency. Do this, hide from legend right now. All right, so I applied the data-driven transparency, and you see it's close that we have the transparency applied, and it's based on a value, but it's based on a scale of negative to positive. So it's not including the low end as part of the focus of the transparency one. But there's a pretty easy way to do this. In this case, I want to use Arcade. And I'm sure there's some Arcade sessions that go into a lot of depth on really powerful and compelling ways you can use Arcade across the platform. But also, Arcade is really great for just kind of cleaning up your data. Maybe it needs to be adjusted to kind of get in a shape you need to be in. And in this case, we want the absolute values. So the extreme of the low and the extreme of the high is going to be the same. And you see the test, it comes back. We're good with precision. We didn't do any formatting. And right away, the cold values are more pronounced. And want to do a little bit of adjustment to hide the median values. And right away, you kind of really see that this is now kind of becoming to really a really nice product. But there's one more thing that I'd like to cover here, and that's blending. Blending is a great way to add to any map to have a little bit of nuance to integrate the layers. And blending takes the target layer that you're applying the blend mode to and integrates it with the layer below it. And it's actually a pixel by pixel difference to where the layers are blended together to produce new visualization. And sometimes that's a wildly different visualization. Sometimes that's just a tweak depending on the blend mode selected and the data. So in this case, there are a few different ones we can do. And multiply is not going to work here. Multiply takes darker and makes it darker. Hard light is a good one. I want to use in this case. You can see it integrates with the labels here. Like you can see United States, the United States label on the base map that's now brought to the front, and you can still see it. And so now I think the symbology is adequate or is sufficient that it allows the base map to still shine through while the trends are still being you can see them. And so now you get a really clear picture of what's hot and cold and what the temperature anomalies are for February 2021. And should be fresh in everyone's memory is that there was a pretty significant polar vortex that slammed Texas pretty hard, and that's clear in this data right here. All right, so let's dive into blend mode a little bit more. Like I said, blend mode does a pixel by pixel blending of the target layer with the layer below it. And that really allows some powerful ways to visualize layers in an integrated fashion that gives kind of human context and nuance, or like I mentioned, totally different visualizations. In this case, I want to do a simple integration with my world countries layer with the base map, which I have a hill shape base map under this. And there's a lot of options you can pick from, and it's fun to just kind of go through and pick which ones and see which ones work. And there's also a helpful text in the UI with a link that kicks out with a more technical explanation of each blend mode and what the effect would be. In this case, I do want multiply because the darker hill shape and that topography will then be blended with my target layer. And what you get is you get a really solid base map without having to do transparency or some other effect that doesn't really achieve what you exactly need. And this one out of the way. And I have a couple other blend modes to show you. All right, so have the unemployment counties layer again. And one of the other powerful ways for blend modes is that you can really bring focus to the areas that you want to bring focus to. So much so that you can completely drop the layers behind it. In this case, it's a base map. And so what this leaves me now is that you get a super focused map of the US counties with unemployment. And it's a great way to just kind of bring the detail and attention to only the areas that you want. All right, and I have one more blend example I'd like to show here. And this is one that Jeremy did for an internal tech transfer earlier this year, but I think it's really great. So these are two layers in this group layer. Building footprints in Los Angeles, and this is specifically Hollywood area, along with housing tract basics. And this is actually predominance with owner-occupied housing units versus renter-occupied housing units. So the areas that are in the greenish color are predominantly owner-occupied, and the brownish color is renter-occupied. You kind of get the sense of everything, but you're not really seeing the parcels come through here. And this is another one that sourced in, where it draws the layer only on top of the layer underneath of it, is a really good one. And so right away, you kind of see that detail from the boundaries, from the parcels. And you kind of see that it's kind of like that it really kind of brings that vivid detail of the parcels without losing anything from the actual renderer of the housing tract. And the cool thing with the group layers is that this can be combined into a single layer to where users interacting with your map, they only see this as owner-occupied housing units. All right, and one more demo here before turning it over to Flora. One of the other powerful things in Map Viewer is clustering. It's been out now for I think close to a year as part of Map Viewer beta. There are a few things I want to call to. So this is a living atlas layer of air quality with parts per million, and this is really nice. You can see right. Sorry, not clustering enabled on this one. Anyway, so this is the living atlas layer, and it looks really nice. Where you can see that it has like vivid detail, but it really doesn't lend itself well to kind of like that zoomed out view. And while we've already kind of killed the surprise, but clustering is I did this 10 times, it didn't work. It worked fine. Let me reload this real quick and start from. All right. Go back to this and right away. All right, cool. And so this is really the biggest thing I wanted to show for this is that right away it took that data that already had that layer that had an existing renderer and applied that renderer to the clusters. And so you see it just cleaned up the data immediately. And that could be the end of this. This looks great. You could be ready to kind of go on with the map or whatever you're trying to build here. But what I want to show is that you can still adjust the cluster radius to kind of get kind of the exact balance that you want. You can adjust the size range to get focus on the larger values. You can still do the same thing with the min values. Additionally, you can configure labels. And filter to only show labels for the features you want. Same thing with pop-ups and clustered fields. In this case, we're having a predominant render on the layer. You will have the value for the predominant field that comes back. So you can still see what is actually a predominant value for that cluster. And if you symbolize with a number value, you can get the average and you get the feature count. So some really powerful ways that you can cluster your data to have visualizations that kind of achieve what you want with this type of data. And with that, I think we could turn it over to Laura.
Thanks, Chris. Let me get my screen shared. Okay, so that was a lot of really cool new visualization stuff that I'm very excited about. And I'm also very excited to share with you for the first time Map Viewer charts. So Map Viewer charts are still in beta, even though Map Viewer is out of beta, because we're kind of starting small. We have big plans, but we wanted to just get something out there for you to start trying, and we're gonna keep improving from there. So the first 3 chart types that we've added to Map Viewer are histogram, bar charts, and scatter plots. So histograms are great for visualizing distributions of values, bar charts for comparing categories, and scatter plots for relationships. And we have some interaction with our charts. You can make a selection of the chart and see it in the map. It'll also persist to other charts. And we can change the chart size and formatting. And sharing, which is an important one. If you publish a layer from Pro that has Pro charts, if it's one of the 3 supported chart types, it will be available in Map Viewer when you open that feature service. And if you create charts in Map Viewer, you save them with the web map, and then you can share that web map and the charts will be in there. So let's take a look at a demo. So I have some layers here. We'll ignore those for now. I'm going to add a new layer, and this is county election results from 2016. So we are looking at voter turnout. So the areas in green have high voter turnout, and the areas in purple have low voter turnout. And we're all really familiar. I think it's safe to assume, given the conference that we're at, we're really familiar with the importance of visualizing spatial distributions, but visualizing distributions in data space is also really important and valuable. So this layer I had published from Pro with a histogram. Actually, I can show you that right here. This is that histogram, and I just shared it this morning. So when I bring it into Map Viewer, it has that chart. So let's take a look and open up our histogram. So we're looking at distribution of voter turnout. I can highlight here, see the counties that have the highest turnout, and check out here. There's one outlier with very low voter turnout. I'm gonna minimize this so we can take a closer look and check out which county it is. So it looks like they only have about 1,400 votes out of 8,700. So that's really low. I'm going to create another histogram. Let's start here and look at per capita income. And so I had that county with the lowest turnout selected in my other histogram. So the bar that it belongs to in this new histogram will still be selected. So I wanted to see if there was a relationship between per capita income and voter turnout. A better way to do this would be through a scatter plot. So I'll create one of those in just a minute, but I wanted to show you some other histogram features while we're here. We have some overlay options. So you can view a normal distribution overlay. You can put the mean and the median on the chart and standard deviations. We also have a statistics table here that has a comprehensive list of stats that detail that numeric value for you. And you can even turn on data labels and have those values drawn on the chart. Let's go back and create a scatter plot to see if there is a relationship between voter turnout and per capita income. So I'll choose voter turnout and per capita income. And with our scatter plot, since each point corresponds to one feature in the map, the colors will match. So we see here our county with the lowest voter turnout is still highlighted here and showing in the dark purple. And then we can see how that distribution kind of goes up the relationship. And we can actually measure the relationship by turning on a linear trend. So in this case, we have an R² of 0.34, which means that about 34% of the variation in voter turnout can be explained by per capita income. Doesn't mean that it's caused by per capita income, but it's just related by that strength. We could change the symbol size, and we can also format these charts a little bit. So the middle color here, the average voter turnout value color, is not showing up so well against the white background. So in the Format tab, I could change the background to a dark color. Maybe if I was using a dark base map, I want to do that as well. And then I can change, I'm going to do a shift select for all of my text fields and just make those white so that we can see them against the black background. And again, selections will persist from the chart to the map so that we can explore our data. The next chart type I will show you is a bar chart. So bar charts are great for comparing categories and amounts. We're going to look at some voter turnout data by state. So for the category, I'm going to choose state. Now this is a county layer, but in the table, every record has a column with which state it belongs to. So we're aggregating by state. I'm going to clear the selection here. Right now, if you just choose a category, the aggregation becomes count. So we're counting basically how many counties belong to each state. Now that's not particularly interesting. So instead of visualizing count, I'm going to select a numeric field and look at voter turnout. And the aggregation automatically switches to sum, but I actually want to see the mean voter turnout by state. And so now we can see that Colorado has really high voter turnout, as does New Hampshire. I could also make a multi-series bar chart. So if we look at, first, let's look at votes total. So this is, and I'm going to make it sum now because we're summing up the totals. Now we can see how many votes there were in each state. So California had the most votes. But I can split this up and get a more detailed view at the proportions of these votes by party. So instead of votes total, I'm going to add votes Democrat, votes Republican, and then votes other. So those three categories make up 100%. So I can add the three of them. We can view them side by side, but since it is a part to whole relationship, I can change the series to stacked. And now we see that same shape here where California has the most votes, but we can also see the proportion of votes for each party. And we could change these colors. So Democrat, we're used to associating with blue, Republican with red, and other, we can kind of keep it a green color. We can also change the labels here if we wanted to have the legend be a little bit more simplified. And we can format our charts like this. We also have 100% stacked. So here, we're no longer interested in the totals, we're only interested in the proportions. So we see here that this state, which is actually DC, has by far the majority of the votes were Democrat. And we can see some other states where the majority of the votes were Republican, like Idaho. So this one is a great way of looking at just the proportions when you're not interested in the totals. And the last thing I'll show you here is some other ways of discovering charts. So I just created some charts here from our layer, and I had some other layers already in my map. And so with this new charts list button over here on the left side, any layer that has a chart will be included in this list, and all of the charts will be visible through here. So you can explore charts through this left pane and go, this is some COVID data that I was modeling, and kind of look chart by chart. Oops, that one is not a valid chart. So we can flip through these and discover our charts that way. And then lastly, if we save this web map and then share it with someone else, all of the charts that you see in this chart list, along with, of course, the layers and the symbology and everything else, will be preserved, and you can share it across your organization. And so we're probably going to get this question, and I want you to know that right now, charts can go from Pro to Map Viewer, and in Map Viewer, they can be saved with the map. But we're working really hard to make these charts interoperable across the platform. So the goal is to have these embedded in story maps and other web applications. We're not quite there yet, which is why we're still kind of calling it beta, but that's really a priority, and we're working to get there. So thank you, and I'll hand it over to Zara.
Awesome. Thanks, Flora. It's really exciting to see charts finally in Map Viewer. So I'm going to start by talking about something else new that's coming in the next release of Map Viewer, and that is Sketch. In Map Viewer, you can add new features to the map by creating a sketch layer. And sketch layers are a new type of feature collection saved with the map, similar to map notes in Map Viewer Classic. They can be a quick and easy way to add a small number of features to the map, and they allow you to add stamps or point layers, lines, polygons, and text, as well as additional information and pop-ups. You can use sketch layers to create entirely new maps, or use them to annotate existing maps and data. So to add a sketch layer, you can go to the Add button and select Sketch Layer. When a new sketch layer is added, the sketch tool.
Sorry to interrupt. Share your screen.
Sorry?
Your screen's not shared.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Can you see it now? I think so.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, sorry. So I can just show again how you add a sketch layer. If you go to the Add button, there is an option to add sketch layer, and it will automatically add a sketch layer to your layer list. And when you add the sketch layer, it automatically opens the sketch tools over on the right. And you can access these tools later by selecting Sketch from the layer options, or by clicking on Edit Sketch from the Properties panel. These sketch tools provide various options to draw and select features on the map, and then these features are automatically added to your sketch layer. So in this example, I can use the polygon tool and start drawing a building footprint on this empty lot. And you can see that snapping is enabled by default, allowing you to create perfect right angles. And you also have the option to change the color, outline, and add pop-ups for each feature. We've added some tips here to go over drawing shortcuts, so you can disable snapping and undo things and redo things. It's important to note that when you set the style for a sketch feature while in draw mode, which is what I was just in, the style and the pop-up content persists for the next features you draw of the same type, and changes to this style apply to the most recently placed feature, as well as the ones you draw afterwards. So in select mode, you can select features, either a single feature at once or multiple features. And when you select them, you have the option to edit the color, outline, and pop-up, or delete that feature. You can also edit the vertices again. And selecting multiple features, you can draw a polygon and then move them around. You can resize them, or you can delete them all at one time. So on this map, all the features that you see were added as a single sketch layer, everything except for the base map. And I've got a combination of traditional pin symbols, as well as some fancier new symbols that I'll go into later, as well as text and a line layer. And you can also see an example, click on one of these pins, of the pop-ups that you can create for sketch layers, similar to the other pop-ups on feature layers. So an exciting new element of the sketch experience in this map viewer is that we include almost 1,000 new symbols or stamps that allow users to create really unique maps. These include basic pin and point of interest symbols, as well as a variety of trees, landforms, buildings, and many more. And these are accessed when drawing points. You can see the pins here. Some examples of some of the new buildings, some trees, and animals, and just a lot more. So there's a lot to explore there, and you can edit the color, size, and pop-ups for all of these as well. And you can add them simply by clicking on the map. So there's many ways to take advantage of sketch layers in your projects. You can use them to add detailed annotation to existing maps by creating multiple sketch layers that might be visible at different scale ranges, and take advantage of group layers to keep things organized. As with other layer types, you can apply transparency and set the visible scale range to sketch layers as well. So in this example, this map contains 2 feature layers about Toronto cycling infrastructure, and one layer is a network of bike lanes and trails, while the other is bicycle parking posts. And I've combined each of these layers into a group with a sketch layer, an associated sketch layer, allowing people to leave comments on that feature layer. And I've also set up visible scale ranges on the group layers and the sketch layers so that the map does not get too cluttered or confusing. So I've got a sketch layer here referencing the feature layer. And if you zoom out, those ones can go away. But I have another sketch layer associated with a byte network, giving information to the map creator to make some edits on the map. You can also combine the artistic stamps and fonts available through Sketch with other cartographic enhancements that we make available in the new map viewer, such as layer blending, and allowing you to create beautiful maps without actually leaving the map viewer. So this is another example of a map that's created using Sketch, as well as a combination of filtering, group layers, and layer blending. It lets me display just the base map and state labels for the that intersect the Appalachian Trail, and then add some custom text and these mountain symbols through Sketch. So next, I'm going to talk about pop-ups in the new map viewer. And new map viewer also includes a whole new pop-up experience. It combines all the traditional functionality that you expect from pop-ups with improved content management and display, which give map authors more flexibility over how content is displayed. So a pop-up is open by default when you open the configure pop-ups tool from the right here. And this allows you to see instant results as you make changes to your pop-up. And these dynamic updates allow you to quickly test out ideas and see the impact they have on the actual look and feel of the pop-up. So in this map, we're looking at a layer of traffic camera locations from the Ministry of Transportation in Ontario. And you see that the pop-up has displayed here. By default, it includes just a fields list, and I can expand that here and see the different fields that are included. You can notice that if I remove fields, they're automatically removed in the preview pop-up here. The new pop-up experience also includes additional information about why you might want to add things like titles and descriptions, and helping you provide context for your users when creating pop-ups. And these tips are going to be released for when you're adding images and other pop-up elements as well. So these additional pop-up elements like more fields, charts, images, and text can also be rearranged however you like, and you can add multiple elements of the same type. You can also combine elements you couldn't before, such as combining custom text and fields in the same pop-up. So on this layer is just a copy of the other layer, but you can see that I've configured a custom pop-up using that same data. And now I've got a fields list that's only showing 2 of the fields, the image, which is referencing the link to an image that was in the attribute table, as well as some custom text. And I can drag these around and rearrange them however I want and see with the automatic updates how that pop-up will look. An additional step you might want to take when formatting your pop-ups is also formatting the attributes in your data. And in the new map viewer, this is easier than ever as well. So I'm going to look at a different layer now. And below configure pop-ups, we also have configure fields. And this just opens a list of all the fields in your data. It gives you some information about the data type. You can see this text and numeric data there. If you have many fields, you can search through them to quickly find the one you want to edit. So if I search for name, I can filter my fields. And if you click into it, you can format the display name. So you could change that to neighborhood name. And you can see that is automatically updated in the pop-up preview as well. And for numeric values, you can select multiple at once, and it will allow you to configure things like decimal places for all of them at one time. So if I change the decimals, they'll all get updated at the same time. And while flexible pop-up content is a big step forward, there's a number of other smaller improvements that we have as well. The new map here introduces the option to dock your pop-up out of the way. So you can see the pop-up can either be linked directly to the feature or it can appear up in the corner. We also have enhanced how attachments can be viewed. They'll appear either as thumbnails or as larger images viewable directly in the pop-up using gallery mode. And we also offer the ability to temporarily disable pop-ups without losing configuration. So if you decide you don't want the pop-ups to display, but then you change your mind, you can bring everything you had customized back without losing it. Another enhancement in the new map viewer is the introduction of vector symbols. These are what we see in Sketch and the stamps and also are used in smart mapping. And these new symbols allow them to be resized without distortion or blurriness. So if I go into the styles panel for this, and I click on a single feature, you can see that we've split out classic symbols and vector symbols. And so the vector symbols are the ones here at the bottom that are the new ones. And I've got airplanes used here. You can see that if they're resized, they don't get distorted at all. Because I'm symbolizing them by unique values, I can also change the color ramp and that will be applied to the symbol as well. So going forward, we also hope to expose the different layers of these symbols, allowing users even more control over the different styling options. So not only does Map Viewer also make it easier to explore data, it's also easier than ever to explore the map. The 4x JavaScript API supports rotation, and you can save your map with rotation you want. This can be useful for mapping places like Central Park or cities like Toronto, where they're often presented with out north directly at the top of the map. So you can rotate the map simply by right-clicking and dragging. And you'll notice a little north arrow that appears at the bottom that allows you to reset after rotating. And you can print your maps with rotation as well, and it will be saved with the web map. Bookmarks in the new map viewer also support rotation, and they have an improved overall authoring and viewing experience. And you can access bookmarks over here. And you can see that I've got a number of bookmarks set up for different baseball fields. If I click through them, I've customized the rotation on each bookmark so that the home plate is always at the bottom. And you can see that the little arrow comes up, and you can reset for those as well. When adding a new bookmark, we now add a thumbnail by default, which is a screenshot of the map. And you can go in and edit that, change it using an image link, or you can remove the thumbnail altogether. The new map here also includes the capability to right-click on the map and determine the address and coordinates for the location. So if you click in here, you'll see what's here, and it will give you some information about that address as well as the coordinates. Base maps are another and have been enhanced in Map here as well. So to access base maps, you can click on the base map panel, which opens the base map gallery. And you can click into the current base map and see the different layers that make up that base map, as well as the option to add additional layers to your base map. If I go back to the gallery, you also see that we have a new option to search the living atlas. And this just gives you some quick and easy access to some really nice additional base maps without too much searching effort on your part. Another enhancement is the ability to change the background color. It will bring you to map properties where you can enable background color, select any color you want. And you can see now if I zoom out, you can see that background color applied. And this can be useful on its own, or especially when you're applying layer blending, you can blend the background color with base maps and other layers as well. So another option from the map properties panel that's new is the option to preserve the map scale when saving your map. And when this option is enabled, the map will be opened at the save scale, which preserves the relative size of features across devices. And when it's not enabled, the scale varies to show features in the saved extent. I can try and show a quick example of that. I've authored this map. You can see some buildings, some roads, and some new stamps from the sketch experience. And right now I have map scale turned off. I've saved another copy where it's turned on. And in this demo, we're sort of viewing as it would look on an iPad. This is one with the preserved map scale is off. You can see it's now a bit zoomed out, but I still see all my features. And if I change it to like an iPhone view, it's still zoomed out at a slightly different scale. I no longer see the buildings. But if I look at the same map on iPad where the map scale is preserved, I do see the buildings at the same scale, but I can't see some of the features. And same if I switch to iPhone view, you still see the buildings. So we're giving users the option to define how they want their map to display. And so one other last enhancement, we also have a new option to hide interface. So if you click that, sort of automatically closes all your panels, gives you more of a full screen view. And when you reopen it, all your tools are open as they were when you left it. So now I'm going to give it back to Chris to go over some additional information and the road ahead for the map viewer.
Great, thanks, Ara. Let me get set up real here. All right, so we are running out of time very quickly, already a minute past, so I'll make this quick, and I imagine that the Q&A from the questions we're seeing will revolve around this. So, all right, so like I said early on, Map Viewer, the new Map Viewer is coming out of beta next week as part of the ArcGIS Online release. So what does that mean? Well, first and foremost, Map Viewer Classic isn't going away. It'll be around for a while. It's going to be around until the new Map Viewer has parity for both functionality and workflows. And that's a key distinction in the sense that we're very mindful of the fact that Map Viewer is used with all sorts of workflows across all sorts of apps. So until there's a strategy for all those, Map Viewer Classic will be around. And in many of those cases, the new Map Viewer is already supporting these things, like taking maps offline with collector and collating and things like that. The ability to configure which Map Viewer is primary. So you can set up the default on whether the default for you is a new Map Viewer or a classic. There's a convenient link available, and we'll definitely dive into this more in the Q&A. But one thing I want to say right here for the web maps created in Map Viewer Classic and new Map Viewer is that web maps created in both are totally viable, production-ready web maps. So there's nothing wrong with them, and they can be used throughout the platform. However, Map Viewer Classic is built on the 3x JavaScript API. And the new Map Viewer is built on the 4x JavaScript API. And there are some functionality that's available in the new Map Viewer through the JavaScript API that is not available in Classic or 3x. And you see that same pattern with like dashboards. The current dashboard is on 3x, dashboards beta is on 4x, and it's coming out of beta next week as well. Similar for Story Maps. Story Maps Classic a few years ago was on 3x, and now Story Maps, the new Story Maps is on 4x. And there are a few things along the way that we'll get to on what those differences are. Let me switch over to this real quick, and I'll walk through a couple things very quick. All right, so we're looking at the org settings, the map tab, and you'll see that there's an option for primary.
Chris, we're not seeing that screen.
Oh. Let's see. All right, you now should be looking at the org settings and the map tab specifically. And you see that there's a setting for the primary map viewer. Existing organizations on the night of the release next week will continue to have the classic map viewer as a primary map viewer for their organization and for the organization members. So what does that mean? Well, the primary map viewer setting drives the link behavior and the global nav here. You see the highlight up top of the map. That will then go to whichever one is configured as the default. It will also dictate the primary open actions or the default open actions for item details page and other areas. You see that this is open in Map Viewer versus Map Viewer Classic. Users in organizations will also be able to set which is a primary map viewer for themselves. So an individual user may be able to stay on Map Viewer Classic or go ahead to the new Map Viewer. And the Learn More link right here is a great resource for like why you may want to use a new viewer or why you may need to consider remaining on Classic. And drill into a couple things real quick here. There's some onboarding messaging about both setting up your settings, Map Viewer beta, and the same Learn More. And what I wanted to show here was just that the Map Viewer link to open in Classic will open whatever map or layer or content you're looking at. And then similarly, there's a link in Map Viewer Classic to open up in beta. And some of the questions have been around which app are supported and things like that. I just discussed about 3x versus 4x. With the Map Viewer release coming out next week, we have a create app experience, and these are all 4x apps. So these are all apps that everything that you build in the new Map Viewer will work great in these apps. And instant apps are a subset of the already existing configurable apps. And I think with that, we'll go back over to one quick thing, and then we will be wrapping up. All right, so the roadmap. We can discuss this more in the Q&A, but it's worth seeing this now. A couple things to note for what's coming out next week. Next week, you will be able to add map image layers. Styling and configuring is not fully there yet, but you'll be able to search and find them from within the map viewer itself. Imagery layers and tiled imagery layers, you'll be able to add them as well as style them. There's some additional work like the processing templates, setting up and pop-ups and things like that. And then some things coming out throughout the summer, including OGC support for OGC API features, configuring and fashionable. And then some things will go into summer and fall, and then finally some things in the future. And the biggest takeaway from this is that this isn't a list of priorities in the sense that we're not going to go to 1, 2, 3. A lot of these things have been in progress for a very long time now. And so we'll see how it shakes out and exactly what bucket we get these things in. But these are the kind of the bigger ticket items that we're targeting right now. And we'll make these slides available, but here's some additional info. One important note is that for enterprise, and I saw from the comments and questions that a lot of the folks are already using Map Viewer beta in enterprise and had questions about it. Well, it's planning to come out of beta similar to online later this year. But I think I'm not sure which release that will be, but it's planned to come out later this year. You can already install Map Viewer beta as a standalone installer on top of Enterprise 10.1 and 10.9. And here's some helpful info and links, including apps that use JavaScript API for 3x or 4x. And I think with that, we can transition over to Q&A.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody. We're so sorry not to be in person to feel the excitement. A lot of this is all based on your feedback, and I know you're excited as we are about the charts and the sketch layers and the visualizations, and it'll be great to see you all in person again and really feel that energy. So keep that feedback coming. That's really what we thrive on. We have lots of questions to get through. We definitely won't get through all of them in the next 6 minutes, but rest assured we will follow up with you. We will continue to post blogs and get information out there. So if we don't get to your question live, we will follow up with you. So with that, we'll get started. First question is for Flora. If I have issues or questions about the charts, do I go to support or is it all through GeoNet or the online community?
That's a good question. I would suggest GeoNet or the online community, or you could even contact me if you have a very specific workflow problem.
Great. Thank you so much. And next question, Jeremy, has a new web map specification been released?
We update the web map spec all the time, with new features. And like Chris was showing and talked about there, Web maps are compatible up to a certain point. So there's a lot of questions around this. So if you, when we release the new map viewer, will my old web maps still work? They'll work just fine, no problems. You can see that today if you were to try out map viewer beta today. Of course, there are new features that only work in the newer applications. So things like Zara showed you those stamps with the vector symbols. Chris showed you group layers. New things like dot density, the charts. Those are all features that won't cause the classic map viewer to not work, but of course you won't see the full fidelity of those features. They might fall back to a default symbol. And so that's where we're trying to really put a lot of useful tips. Whenever you're using a new feature, you'll probably start to see that, like blend modes or vector symbols, to let you know that it's usable in the newer web applications. So by newer web applications, that's a lot of them. So that's story maps, it's experience builder, that is the newer configurable apps, that's the new dashboard, and so on. And of course, the other areas of the Esri technology stack, like Runtime and Pro, will keep supporting those new features as they update. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. I have a couple of questions, Zara, for you. The first one is, can we add custom vector symbols?
So right now, you can add custom vector symbols by publishing to a web style group for smart mapping, but not yet for when we release Sketch. You can't use custom symbols for that yet. It's something we might consider in the future, but for now, can't do that.
Great, thank you.
Zara, there was another, sorry, I was going to follow up with another question, Marianne, to Zara. Zara, there was another question about what are the plans for using the new stamps in the smart mapping experience?
I guess in a similar answer, where in the next release, they won't be available there, but if it's something that people might request, we might consider it going forward.
Cool, thanks.
And Flora, will there be a way to save out the charts if you needed static in case the data changes to prove the decision?
So I saw that question. I'm not sure I fully understand it, but right now the way to save charts is with the web map. So I think maybe the question is if we can like save a state of a chart. And I think that the only way to do that right now would be to save just a static image of it, like a screenshot. We don't have any way of preventing the charts from updating with the data. But if that is a feature that's important to you, please speak up in the online community and we will prioritize it.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see, Chris, can you copy layers within a map?
Not currently. That is on the roadmap, and hopefully to get that in the soonish bucket. And that will also be with part and parcel with saving to the layer then. So that will be a full complete experience. And without revealing too much, we have a lot of work here for folks that are interested in saving layers and use that workflow and understands the power of it. We'll make it a lot clearer in the new viewer. So it's a complex project, but super excited to bring it to life here later this summer, hopefully.
Great, thank you. Jeremy, do you want to speak a little bit about the use case for sketch tools and stickers?
Yeah, there's quite a few use cases. I loved Zara's demos. I hadn't seen them before today, but I thought she did an excellent job. She added to that Appalachian Trail, and she made use of a lot of the new techniques there. So it's kind of how you would, if you've used story maps, express maps, so you can easily annotate on top of the map. That's our goal. And it's the same as map notes. So your existing map notes layer will come in and you'll be able to view them. The new sketch experience, some aspects will be able to view in the classic viewer, but the new stamps won't come across because they're vector symbols in the classic viewer, and the 3x JavaScript API don't support them.
Thanks. And while you're unmuted there, is there a plan to enhance the HTML formatting in the new viewer? Support for more advanced HTML tags?
Yeah, we're constantly thinking about that, and we want to, at some point in the life cycle of the new map viewer, give you control over the rich text experience. We won't ever support full JavaScript because that would be a security hole for you. So it's always going to be some subset.
Great, thank you. And with that, we're at time. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We really appreciate it. We can't wait to see you again live soon. Thank you.